This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
نذكر أيضا بأن مصدرا أمنيا لبنانيا كان أعلن في وقت سابق.
Earlier today, Lebanese security sources announced that at least 20 people were arrested under the suspicion of giving information and updates on Hezbollah positions in the southern suburbs for the Israeli air forces to target.
وذلك كأهداف للقوات الجوية الإسرائيلية.
The Lebanese source said that the arrests began a few days ago. However, no official comment has been made about this matter.
أي تعليق رسمي لم يصدر على هذه المسألة. الضربات الجوية الإسرائيلية كانت استهدفت طبعا الضاحية الجنوبية.
The Israeli airstrikes targeted, of course, the southern suburbs where the informants for Israel were arrested. The raids destroyed a number of buildings in the southern suburbs. These buildings were used by the political, security and media wings of Hezbollah in the southern suburbs.
والإعلامية لحزب الله في الضاحية الجنوبية.
According to information from the security source, which was not verified by any official source, most of the arrests took place in the suburbs and that some of those who were arrested actually confessed to collaborating with Israel. Different equipment was found in their possession, but the type of equipment was not disclosed.
إسرائيل وعثر معهم على تجهيزات لم تحدد نوعيتها.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah missiles continue to fall on the northern city of Haifa and beyond. One person was lightly injured by shrapnel in those attacks. We go live now to IDA's Viva Press, who is in Haifa following developments. Viva, what's going on?
Yes, Leah, indeed, the north today was hit by a massive barrage of rocket fire. There are reports that some 70 rockets landed in the northern area within just a 1-hour time frame. The rockets landed in Haifa, as you mentioned, Carmiel, Tiberias, and other northern communities. In Haifa, indeed, one person was wounded by shrapnel, and 6 others suffered shock wounds. One of the fortunate things about the rockets that landed today in Haifa is that they mainly landed in open areas. It also hit an empty building nearby in a town just east of Haifa. An old age home had to be evacuated, and the residents are all fine, but they did have to be evacuated from there. One of the things here that people are talking about, the residents are worried about, is that the sirens did not actually sound today at the right time. In this morning's barrage that hit the empty building and the open areas, the siren didn't go at all. Later today, the sirens rang out 5 times. People did take cover, and the home front is saying that people should remain in their shelters. And while the north is definitely under a barrage of rockets, much of the tension today is towards Avivim at the border between Lebanon and Israel, where the fighting, as you mentioned, is continuing. Leah.
Yes, indeed. Viva Press reporting live from Haifa. Thank you very much indeed, Viva. Well, 6 people were wounded in Tzfat as well, 4 seriously, as Hezbollah rocket fire continues to rain down on the rest of northern Israel. Katyushas scored a direct hit on a house in Carmel. Luckily, none of the family members inside was hurt. Barrages of Katyushas hit other towns and villages in the western Galilee and the Hula Valley today, including Hariri, Tiberias, Hatzor Glilit, Rosh Pina, and the Jezreel Valley. Fires broke out there, but no injuries were reported. And the Air Force continues to carry out aerial strikes throughout Lebanon. Jets today struck 6 locations linked to monetary transfers to Hezbollah. Warplanes also took out a bridge between the cities of Tzur and Sidon. 5 weapons storage sites and communications infrastructure were hit. According to reports, at least 46 civilians and 1 Hezbollah terrorist were killed in bombings throughout Lebanon. Warplanes also carried out attacks in the southern Lebanese village of Srifa, where around a dozen villagers were killed. Air Force missiles continue to pound towns south and east of the capital, Beirut. Army sources estimate that 10 to 14 more days are needed to achieve the goals of the current military operation. Well, moving south, and a major terror attack was averted this afternoon after security forces captured a would-be Palestinian suicide bomber in a building site in Hod HaSharon near Ra'anana, this following a massive manhunt. Following the arrest, a high level of alert in the area was called off, and all of the temporary roadblocks set up on local roads were removed. Traffic was snarled for hours on highways and intersections throughout that area during the alert. Huge traffic jams between the Ra'anana junction and all points leading to Hod HaSharon and Kfar Saba continued for some time, even after the arrest was carried out. To Gaza now, where 5 Israeli soldiers were wounded and 7 Palestinians killed early today as IDF troops moved back into the central area of the Strip. In other developments, IDF forces also entered Nablus on the West Bank, killing 3 terrorists. IBA's Eli Wogelenter has more.
The IDF targeted 17 terrorist sites in the Gaza region this morning, including the Mugazi refugee camp, where tanks moved in before dawn under cover of machine gun fire. Residents said 30 Israeli armored vehicles were in the Gaza camp at sunrise. 5 soldiers were wounded by shrapnel when a grenade was hurled in their direction. 2 of the soldiers sustained moderate wounds and were evacuated to Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. The 3 others were lightly wounded and were treated at the scene. The refugee camp, with 22,000 residents, is near the Gaza-Israel fence across from the Palestinian town of Deir el-Balah. Israeli troops also swept through southern Gaza and carried out 2 invasions of northern Gaza, trying to stop terrorists from firing rockets at Israel. Troops also discovered and destroyed a tunnel used for smuggling arms and are looking for another tunnel in the area of the Karni crossing. Meanwhile, 7 Qassam rockets were fired on the Negev, landing around Sderot and in an agricultural area about 4 miles to the northwest, which is the furthest Qassam rockets have penetrated. Last night, an improved Grad-type rocket was fired at the western Negev. Zappers discovered the Grad this morning near Kibbutz Bor Chayil in the western Negev. The rocket has an increased range and carries a larger warhead than the thousands of Qassams which Palestinians have been launching against Israel. And a 52-year-old Sderot resident who sustained a heart attack following a Qassam rocket attack in his home died yesterday. Shlomo Moshe, whose brother was killed in the last year in a terror attack near the Karni crossing, went into shock after a rocket slammed down in his home. And in Nablus, 3 Palestinian terrorists were killed in an exchange of fire when a large IDF force entered the Muqata compound early this morning. Muqata mainly serves the Palestinian security forces, but according to the Army Senior Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, terrorists were holed up inside. Terror groups operating from Nablus were said to be behind Monday's failed suicide attack in Jerusalem. IDF forces apprehended several people inside the compound, and IDF bulldozers leveled part of the area, including the Preventive Security Service headquarters. Eli Wogelenter, IBA News.
And here in Jerusalem, the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee today approved a special security status for northern Israel, giving the army wide-ranging powers over local authorities. Today's special meeting of the defense panel came at the request of Defense Minister Amir Peretz. The committee's approval empowers the IDF to enforce special rules and regulations for the civilian population in Israel's northern towns and cities in view of the ongoing Hezbollah attacks.
We needed to protect the economic situation of the people in the north. We need to give them more services in several aspects, economic, food, water, whatever, So this decision brings to everybody more tools to bring this service to the population.
And as the violence in the north intensifies, the Security Cabinet convened in the Prime Minister's Jerusalem office this morning. Their decision, the military operations in Gaza and Lebanon will be unlimited in time and in scope. The Cabinet also agreed on broad principles which will guide Israel in its negotiations with international mediators on gaining the release of the 2 kidnapped IDF soldiers in Lebanon, Udi Goldwasser and Eldad Regev, and Corporal Gilad Shalit, being held in Gaza. The Cabinet said Israel will not renege on its demand that Lebanon implement Resolution 1559, which calls for disarming Hezbollah and deploying the Lebanese army in the south of the country.
The Israeli occupation forces committed horrific massacres against dozens of Lebanese civilians in military raids on a number of cities and villages. The number killed so far is 50. In the past 8 days of aggression, 300 people were martyred and 1,000 others were injured.
مع دخولها الأسبوع الثاني بحربها المفتوحة على لبنان، ارتكبت قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي مجازر مروعة بحق عشرات المدنيين اللبنانيين في غارات امتدت على طول الأرض اللبنانية.
Entering its second week of an open war on Lebanon, the Israeli occupation forces committed horrific massacres against dozens of Lebanese civilians. The raids have left their mark on all Lebanese lands, from the south to the farthest point north. In the village of Sarifa in the south, according to initial counts, more than 25 civilians were martyred after Israeli planes and ships carried out raids on a residential neighborhood, completely destroying it. Dozens of houses collapsed on their residents. In the Silla village, east of the city of Sour, the raids martyred 10 people from the same family. Their bodies were pulled from underneath the rubble of their home. Another massacre claimed the lives of at least 8 people when their bus was targeted as they were trying to flee from the raids on the village of Ketarun. An airstrike also targeted a 4-story commercial center in the coastal village of Gazia, south of Sidon. The city of Nabatea also witnessed a new Israeli massacre. The bombings destroyed a 4-story residential building and a small house in the center of the city, martyring 6 civilians, including a woman and her 3 children.
صغيرا وسط المدينة، ما أدى إلى استشهاد 6 مدنيين بينهم امرأة وأطفالها الثلاثة.
Early this morning, planes raided the Nabatea market on Sabah Street. The building also included the home of Mustafa Hamid. There are about 5 martyrs. There is massive destruction.
وفي بعلبك استشهد 5 مدنيين في غارة استهدفت 3 شاحنات. أما في بلدة النبيشيت قرب بعلبك فقد استشهد 6
In Baalbek, 5 civilians were martyred in a raid that targeted 3 trucks. In the village of Nabashit, near Baalbek, 6 civilians from one family were martyred when planes bombed a 4-story building. Plane and naval strikes resumed in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where 14 civilians were martyred and 44 others were injured. The raid specifically targeted the Hirak neighborhood, the airport bridge, the Shuwaifat bridge, the airport and a truck stop in the area of Saman, as well as the Ashrafia area in the center of the capital. The Israeli aggression on Lebanon has martyred 300 people and injured 1,000 others.
In an exclusive interview with Arabiya television, Parliament member and leader of the Mustaqbal Party, Saad al-Hariri, praised Arab efforts exerted by Saudi Arabia and Egypt to solve the current crisis in Lebanon. Al-Hariri said that he is amazed by the American position. He added that the current war is not a war of the Lebanese people and that Lebanon should not have to pay the price for the conflict of others, nor fight their wars.
الشعب اللبناني هو ليس المسؤول عن هذه الحرب والشعب اللبناني هو الوحيد اللي عم يدفع ثمن الحرب وهذه
The Lebanese people are the only ones who are paying the price of the war. This war is a regional war and it has become a burden on Lebanon and its territories. Some countries are saying that they are ready for confrontation, so let them start a confrontation. For 30 years not a single bullet was fired along the Syrian borders. They officially are in a state of ceasefire. We in can Lebanon refuse to become the only country that's in direct confrontation with Israel? We are only one member of the Arab League, and we participate in making decisions in the Arab League. But we do not accept that some countries want to maintain a ceasefire with Israel while using Lebanon to flex their muscles. I am also amazed by the American position. They say that they are with Lebanon, but they have let Israel bomb Lebanon left and right. Who will take the responsibility to find a political solution? At the end of the day, the crisis will end if a political solution is reached to the situation in Lebanon. I would like to say something to all Lebanese. Today we must stay united behind each other. No one can dispose of or end Hezbollah. Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese people. We are both in the same boat. What a silly thing to say that Hezbollah can be destroyed or ended. Hezbollah includes families and people, young and old. The Lebanese people are Hezbollah.
كبار وصغار في حزب الله. هذا الشعب اللبناني هو حزب الله.
The non-aligned movement has denounced the United Nations' failure to condemn the Israeli Zionist regime's crimes against the Lebanese civilians, demanding an immediate UN action to stop the brutalities.
The non-aligned bloc's ambassadors to the UN in New York on Tuesday issued a statement decrying Israeli atrocities as a threat to the world peace and security. They dismissed Israeli crimes as a blatant violation of UN Charter and the international law, calling for the UN General Assembly to hold an extraordinary session to help end the conflict involving the Israeli regime and Lebanon. Meantime, the Arab League said Washington's veto of anti-Israeli UN resolution was a green light for Israel to press on with its atrocities. In the meantime, anti-Israeli demonstrations continued around the world today, with thousands of Yemenis taking to the streets of the capital Sana'a to condemn Israel's barbaric attacks against Lebanon and the Palestinians. The protesters held Lebanese and Palestinian flags, as well as pictures of Sayyid Hassan Nassrallah, the leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah. Israel is the enemy of God. Hezbollah, destroy the enemy of God, the crowds chanted. There have been similar protests across the world today in Jordan, Ukraine, Paris, and Brussels. In the U.S., people turned out in force in New York to blast Israel's brutalities.
Another nickel, not another dime. No more money for Israel's crimes.
We are here to show that Jewish people are not in favor of what's being done by the Israelis. We are against the state of Israel since the day it began, going back 50-odd years and even before then. Jews did live in peace with Arabs, and there were no problems with peace, and Muslims, Jews and Palestinians. Everything was in nice coexistence. We have documents on that. We have still people still alive that would remember old golden history. What's happening today, what happens all these years, is something that was caused by political Zionists.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Stop bombing Lebanon! Stop bombing Lebanon!
Occupation troops were redeployed last night in the town of Beit Hanun, north of the Gaza Strip. Tanks were withdrawn from downtown and mobilized on the northern and eastern fronts, leaving behind extensive damage and destruction to civilian homes and property, the infrastructure, and agricultural lands. Meanwhile, dozens of fleeing families are taking refuge in UNRWA schools, fearing reoccupation of the town.
This place looks like it has been hit by an earthquake. Its magnitude on the Israeli Richter scale has reached unprecedented levels. The Israeli pullout from the town of Beit Hanun in northern Gaza revealed the extent of the destruction left behind by the Israeli war machine. As usual, in all the raids it carries out, systematic destruction of infrastructure in all aspects of life has taken place.
Total destruction for everyone. They did not spare birds, trees, rocks, infrastructure, electricity, or water. They turned off water and electricity and locked people in their rooms. They requested water, but they refused to give them any. We evacuated the children through windows from high stories while they were shooting at them. They stormed in like savages.
We say no. No matter what, we will never surrender. It's not like we will just wave the white flag and say welcome.
The death machine even targeted graves. UNRWA buildings were not spared the cruelty of this machine, which has destroyed both its health centers and its schools.
She is saying we came to this place and thought the destruction would be less severe. But what happened was major destruction. They destroyed the schools, cafeterias, bathrooms, and even classrooms. We thought this year we would use the funds we received to build new classrooms and new schools. But it looks like we will be using the money to rebuild what the occupation forces destroyed.
الأسر الفلسطينية التي باتت تئن تحت وطأة زخات المدفعية.
Dozens of Palestinian families who are in anguish under the brunt of Israeli shelling that destroyed their homes have sought shelter in the schools of UNRWA. In spite of the pullout by Israeli forces, the families are afraid to even think about returning to their homes. The Israeli floodgates may open any minute to take with it anything left behind. Here, anyone is not safe at home.
حتى من دخل بيته فهو غير آمن.
My home is not safe for me. Every person feels safe at home and remains attached to it and would not abandon it. I wouldn't have left my house except that I was looking for safety for my children. I lived in a corrugated metal house with a tiled roof. The shrapnel kept falling towards the children. They were petrified. There is no safety in my home.
من انسحاب الآليات العسكرية إلا أن المدينة برمتها.
Despite the pullout by military tanks, the entire town is in need of reconstruction efforts to rebuild what has been destroyed, especially the basic necessities of life. Dozens of families have been rendered homeless. They are citizens who have been deprived of their most fundamental human rights. Israel mobilizes dozens of tanks, and all aspects of life come to a screeching halt. Meanwhile, there is an international silence as well as an Arab one.
تمكن نحو 6,000 مسافر فلسطيني كانوا عالقين في الأراضي المصرية منذ
Nearly 6,000 Palestinian travelers who were stranded in Egypt for more than 3 weeks have now returned to the Gaza Strip after the border crossing was opened with the help of European monitors.
في مبادرة إنسانية لإنهاء معاناة ومأساة.
In a humanitarian initiative to end the suffering of thousands of Palestinian travelers who were stranded in Egyptian lands for more than 3 weeks, the Rafah border crossing was opened on one side for those going to the Gaza Strip with the attendance of European monitors. The movement at the crossing point was organized in a quick and easy fashion, especially on the Palestinian side, which offered important medical treatment for sick and elderly travelers.
للمسافرين المرضى والمسنين.
احنا قعدنا ايام كثيره
We stayed there for many days. We suffered a lot at the crossing. We all want to leave.
بدنا نروح وانا بعيط الحين عشان بدي ادخل يعني فلسطين لانه مشتاق لها كثير.
I'm crying now because I want to enter Palestine. I miss it a lot. It's been a long time since I entered Palestine. I love my country of Palestine a lot because Palestine is where I lived, grew up, and learned everything. I cannot live away from my country.
There is a lot of suffering. We have been very tight on money. The health conditions are difficult. Thank God. In the end, we have entered Palestine despite the suffering and the siege. Thank God.
The reopening of the Rafah border crossing despite the Israeli stubbornness and obstacles shows the Palestinian Authority's commitment to its right of using the crossing point according to international treaties. It also confirms the refusal of the Palestinian Authority to use the Israeli Abu Salem crossing point instead of the Rafah crossing, confirming that they will not bow to Israeli demands.
This is the result of the great effort that was put forth by the Palestinian Authority Sea with the help of the Arab Republic of Egypt and the European Union. Thank God we have opened the crossing for travelers from the Egyptian side, and we have been working at a very fast pace to facilitate the movement for all the Palestinian people on the Egyptian side.
The Palestinian side facilitated matters in a good manner. However, there are big crowds. There are women, children, and old people. On the other side, these people needed more accommodating measures. However, we thank the Egyptian government for making this easier. The Egyptian army and the Egyptian people stood with the Palestinian people in a courageous and heroic way. I pray to God to help everyone and to ease the suffering of our people.
After the stranded travelers returned, hope reappeared for thousands of sick people, visitors, and people who want to travel with regard to the breakthrough in the border crossing crisis, as well as the ending of the siege and imposed closure on the Gaza Strip. The residents were able to exercise their right to travel and move in a free and organized manner.
أفاد تقرير للجنة حقوق الإنسان التابعة لبعثة الأمم المتحدة في العراق أن
A report released by the United Nations Human Rights Committee said that more than 5,818 civilians across Iraq have been killed and others injured in May and June. The report added that 150,000 people have been displaced due to sectarian violence. In the city of Kufa, a suicide bomber killed 60 people and wounded more than 100 in a booby-trapped minivan. The attack threatens to escalate sectarian strife in the country. Meanwhile, 14 unidentified bodies were found in southern Baghdad.
الفتنة الملعونة في العراق الجديد تكاد لا تنام فهي تستيقظ في كل يوم تقريبا.
The unfortunate sectarian strife in Iraq shows no signs of slowing down. Every day, it pits Iraqi Shiites and Sunnis against one another in an escalation of violence that has turned into a bloody nightmare, which some fear may break out into a full-blown civil war that would destroy all of Iraq. The last incident targeted the Shiites of Kufa. A minivan carrying a Baghdad sign arrived in downtown Kufa with a driver who wore a big smile, asking poor day laborers in Iraqi dialect to ride with him for a job in the city. The laborers loaded into the minivan, not knowing that they were riding to their death. And minutes later, the vehicle detonated. Body parts scattered all over the area. 60 were killed and more than 100 sustained injuries.
في أرجاء المكان قتل نحو 60 وأصيب أكثر من 100 آخرين بجروح.
The man in a minivan came saying he needs laborers. Once the workers got into the van, it exploded.
The Iraqi government, like its predecessors, has proven its clear inability and utter failure to protect Iraqi citizens of all sects and affiliations. It came as no surprise, therefore, when some angry citizens threw stones at police officers demanding their replacement.
They don't want the police. They don't care. All they want is their salary each month.
العنف في الجنوب تحرك إلى أعمق من الكوفة وصولا إلى مدينة البصرة.
The violence in the south spread from Kufa to the city of Basra. In Basra, 5 Mahdi army soldiers were killed and others were wounded in a clash with British forces that were carrying out an operation in search of weapons in the area. During funeral processions, women wailed and men wept as they bid farewell to their loved ones. Between sectarian violence and the occupation forces' bullets, Iraqis chronicle their memories in blood. It seems that there is a hidden and systematic attempt to force Iraqis to officially announce the death of national reconciliation efforts between the different sects in Iraq and the beginning of a civil war in a country whose patriotic citizens were always able to foil any attempt to create sectarian strife.
مواطنوه الوطنيون بفطرتهم جميع محاولات الفتنة وتحت كل الظروف.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.